Hi, my name is Liz Agbartabi, and I'm Vice President of Global Policy at Global Citizen. We're thrilled to be part of the UN Biodiversity Summit during this very unique time in our history. Joining me to talk about this crucial issue today are Virginie Helias, Chief Sustainability Officer for Procter & Gamble, one of our Global Citizen corporate partners, and Clover Hogan, a climate activist and founder and executive director of Force of Nature. Virginie, Clover, welcome.
Thank you so much for having us.
At Global Citizen, our mission is to end extreme poverty. So it may seem disjointed for us to be talking about biodiversity, but in reality, there's such interconnectedness across the Sustainable Development Goals and issue areas, especially as it relates to protecting vulnerable populations. Can you discuss some of the co-benefits of protecting nature?
Sure. I mean, it's interesting. One of the silver lining of the pandemic is that people have started, to make a connection between planet health and human health. And in all our research, we see that consumers now are committing to be more health conscious, more environmentally conscious. So they are really making this link and seeing that everything is actually connected, which is great. That this awareness is rising. Of course, why do we protect the planet? We want both the planet and the humans to thrive. And all the projects that we are running have both components. In palm oil, our big projects are actually with smallholder farmers in Malaysia. And what we do, we teach them sustainable agricultural practices. And what it does is that it raises productivity by 30 to 50%. And as a consequence, it raises them, it lifts them out of poverty, raises their livelihood. So there is a very strong connection. I mean, when we do more recently, so we have committed to invest in natural climate based nature-based solution. And one of the projects is protecting and restoring the Atlantic forest in Brazil. I mean, this project is in planning phase with Conservation International. And the way we do it is that we consult, the local population, I mean, the government, all the stakeholders, and we have a participatory design, because obviously we don't want the unintended consequences of restoring the forest, but then degrading the livelihood for those local populations. So it's very, very important that we always have the human elements, front and center. And for us, serving 5 billion people through our brands, we have a unique vehicle to bring front and center the human element and to make it very concrete and very tangible for people. So we have now, all our brands are in the process of defining what is their environmental or social commitment, what is their North Star, the thing that, in the next decade they want to achieve with an ecosystem of partners. And one of those brands actually decided to focus on biodiversity. The brand is Herbal Essence. They've decided that they will protect endangered plants and promote plant biodiversity. And they are partnering with the Royal Botanic Garden, and they are the Global World Authority on Plant Science, and they are making it very concrete. They have a goal to save from extinction 300 plants, and they are starting this year. They have a big program in the US now, which is called Save 20 by 20, 20 plants by 2020. And it's very relevant because Herbal Essence obviously is powered by nature, it's using natural ingredients. So we need to make sure that through the ingredients that are part of the shampoo, we actually imply the entire supply chain, and through the way we do it, we actually protect those plants from extinction.
Thank you. And Clover?
Yeah, so Virginie started by spotlighting how this pandemic, COVID-19, has really illustrated the relationship between planetary health and human health. And one of the first reactions to that at the start of COVID was, oh, looking at all of the animals returning to urban environments, looking at dolphins returning to Venice or peacocks returning to Milan. And yet there was something quite dangerous in that narrative that was picked up. This kind of what I would describe as an eco-fascist narrative of people being a plague on the planet and humans being a plague. In fact, the majority of the world's biodiversity is currently protected by frontline indigenous communities. And so I would argue that our problem is not people. We've coexisted in nature for a long time, but the systems in which we're currently operating. And with that, the climate and biodiversity crisis is the symptom of a centuries-long history of exploitation of our natural world within this very economic, capitalist-based philosophy, I suppose. And it's a history of exploitation. It's a history of commodification. And so what really needs to happen, which Virginie was just spotlighting, is that we stop valuing the tree for the table or for the paper that it delivers, and we really start valuing nature from a place of interconnectedness and our inherent dependence on these environments. So it's not about humans being a plague, it's about protecting frontline communities and rekindling that connection to our natural world so that we are championing what's important. And I feel that much of that begins with really sowing a deep ecophilia, a deep love and awe and appreciation for this natural world, because without it, we are nothing. We are not separate from nature. We are nature, but we need to design systems in such a way that it's not difficult to be responsible, which is currently the case.
The other aspect, if I may just build on this, is yes, we need to find this new connection with nature and with others. We also need to accelerate our innovation. I mean, people are not a plague. The way they can justify their presence on Earth is by actually making it better through innovation, which is very interesting, maybe ironic at the same time, is that we are now relearning from nature how to innovate. That's called biomimicry, and we are using a lot of biomimicry because obviously the Earth has been innovating for thousands and thousands of years. So innovation is a way to actually reconcile this. It's not about less, living less, or doing less. It's about thriving, but thriving in a way where nature also thrives. I mean, both people and nature. And so, I mean, innovation is at the core of P&G. And we are developing product now that uses less water, less chemical, more ingredient that come from responsibly sourced, that recycle the water when they are used. And so through innovation, we can really find this new loving connection with nature that can actually not just do less bad, as Clover was saying, but do more good. And we have a fantastic project which is called the 50-liter home, which is about reducing the amount of water that is being used to 50 liters per person per day. Just Americans, many of them are using 500 liters per person per day. But it's not just about reducing; it's about enriching the water and improving the health of people living in the water through our innovation. So I agree that it's not just about reducing our impact of nature. We can actually do even better, and so that nature can thrive and people can thrive.
So I'd like to hear from each of you what is being done and what needs to be done to make sure that all stakeholders recognize the importance of biodiversity in our lives and take the necessary precautions really to step up to the plate in protecting biodiversity.
I would start by saying largely we need to center the voices of people who are experiencing the direct impacts of these crises today, but who are also best placed to solve for them. We have a tendency to take this very top-down kind of model of solving problems when we're not actually connected to them. And yet, as Virginie touched on, the innovations, the incredible ingenuity that comes out of these communities who have been facing these challenges for decades is absolutely incredible. I feel very privileged as a young climate activist to be able to speak in these kind of air-conditioned rooms to policymakers and business leaders, and yet there are many thousands of young climate activists on the front lines of this issue who will never be afforded that same opportunity and that same privilege. So we will not solve these challenges if we are not entirely inclusive and diverse in our approach. We need to begin to wake up to the interconnectedness, not just of our relationship to nature, but of course our interconnectedness to communities around the world. Again, that harks back to this challenge of very globalized products and services. We're much more dependent on one another than we appreciate, and yet the impact of my decisions living in a cushy Western bubble are much greater on those communities than I can even begin to appreciate. So we need to invite those voices in to be able to solve these big, messy challenges. We've talked about this crisis through the context of polar bears and solar panels, and yet fundamentally climate justice is social justice, and Black Lives Matter especially has brought front and center this failure, and I take it as a personal failure, to invite these voices in. And this isn't about token gestures. It's not about giving lip service. It is about centering these solutions in the communities that are facing these challenges, because we all need to be resilient. We all need to be adaptive. And in fact, we're going to be able to deliver much better, much more holistic system level solutions if we invite a diversity of backgrounds and experiences.
Great.
So I would agree with those two aspects. I would say making it real and breaking it down in tangible pieces that people actually can do something about. The other aspect is indeed inclusive. It's making it happen through partnership. A few months ago, I went through an amazing experience. It was about plastic waste, ocean plastic waste, and we went on a ship with 163 stakeholders, and it was from industry to activists, Greenpeace, Nestle, P&G together. And we actually got to dive to the big gyre in the Atlantic North, and so we were fishing those plastic and then back on the ship, working solution together. And I think this is the model for the future. There is no single issue, and biodiversity certainly not, that one company can solve on its own, or one NGO can solve on its own. So the new model is this radical, partnership model where everyone who has a voice is included, cross-generational, cross-value chain, and I think that's what we need to do for biodiversity.
Thank you so much to both of you, Clover and Virginie, for this really important conversation. Wherever you are in the world, make your voice heard and call on leaders to step up to protect biodiversity. Together, we can create a more sustainable, just, peaceful, and equitable world. And of course, visit globalcitizen.org to find out more.